The year 2025 was already becoming a difficult one for air travel. After a record-safe year in 2023, a concerning number of incidents had put the public on edge, but nothing could have prepared the world for the events of June 12th. On that clear Thursday afternoon, Air India Flight 171 was scheduled for a routine journey from Ahmedabad, India, to London's Gatwick Airport. The flight was filled with a diverse group of passengers, including families returning from vacation, business travelers, and students. For the 242 souls on board, it was supposed to be the start of a long-haul trip, but it ended in a devastating tragedy just moments after it began. This crash would become the deadliest air disaster in nearly a decade, a stark and brutal reminder of the inherent risks of aviation. The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner, a modern and widely trusted aircraft, lifted off from Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport at 1:39 p.m. Indian Standard Time. On board were 228 passengers, including 11 children and a crew of 14. The passenger manifest reflected a global community with 169 Indian nationals, 53 British citizens, 7 individuals from Portugal, and 1 Canadian. Among those feared to be on the flight was a prominent political figure, former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani, adding a layer of national significance to the unfolding horror. The flight was more than just a number, it was a collection of individual lives, each with a story, a family, and a future that was about to be tragically cut short. The crash occurred in Meghaninagar, a densely populated residential area not far from the airport. Instead of climbing towards the sky, the massive aircraft descended, striking a doctor's hostel with catastrophic force. The impact and subsequent explosion sent a pillar of fire and thick black smoke into the afternoon sky, visible for miles. The scene on the ground was one of unimaginable chaos and destruction. The wreckage of the plane was intertwined with the collapsed structure of the building, creating a perilous environment for first responders. The loss of life was immense, not only on the aircraft but also potentially on the ground, turning a local neighborhood into the site of an international disaster. The initial reports painted a grim picture, with the high number of people on board making it clear that this would be a mass casualty event. As emergency crews worked tirelessly through the debris, hope for finding survivors began to fade. The fiery nature of the crash made rescue efforts extremely difficult and dangerous. In a small glimmer of hope amidst the devastation, at least one survivor was confirmed, a British national named Vishwas Kumar Ramesh. However, his survival was an exception in a tragedy that claimed nearly everyone else on the aircraft, marking June 12, 2025, as a day of profound loss and a dark chapter in the history of Indian aviation. The sequence of events that led to the crash of Air India Flight 171 unfolded with shocking speed. Everything appeared normal as the Boeing 787 began its takeoff roll under clear, sunny. Routine nature of the flight ended almost immediately. Shortly after takeoff, the flight crew issued a Mayday distress call, a clear signal to air traffic control that the aircraft was in grave and imminent danger. This call was the first indication that something had gone terribly wrong during one of the most critical phases of flight. Eyewitness accounts and video footage captured the aircraft's final, terrifying moments. The Dreamliner never managed to climb above 200 meters or about 650 feet. At an altitude where the plane should have been steadily ascending, it instead began to lose height. Investigators noted that the landing gear had not yet been retracted, a detail suggesting that the emergency occurred so soon after liftoff that the pilots had not even completed their initial post-takeoff checklist. The aircraft appeared to descend in what some witnesses described as a controlled fashion, not in a nosedive or an uncontrolled spin, which adds a complex layer to the investigation. The flight was under the command of 2 experienced pilots. The captain, Sumit Sabharwal, was a line training captain with an impressive record of over 8,200 flying hours. He was responsible for training other pilots, indicating a high level of skill and trust from the airline. His co-pilot, First Officer Clive Kundar, was newer to the role, but still had approximately 1,100 hours of flying experience. With such a capable crew in the cockpit, the fact that they were unable to manage the emergency points to a catastrophic and sudden failure. Their Mayday call is a testament to the fact that they knew they were in trouble, but the situation was likely beyond what any pilot could handle. The final impact was devastating. The aircraft's tail was later seen grotesquely stuck on the roof of the damaged doctor's hostel, a testament to the low altitude and shallow angle of the crash. The plane, laden with fuel for the long journey to London, erupted into a massive fireball upon impact, incinerating much of the fuselage and the building it struck. The crash of Flight 171 was not a prolonged crisis that played out over hours. It was a sudden, violent event that transpired in just a few minutes, turning a routine departure into a scene of utter destruction and leaving a community and the entire Aviation Investigation Bureau, or AAIB, took the lead in the investigation, securing the crash site and beginning the painstaking process of recovering evidence. The flight's two crucial black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, became the top priority for recovery teams. These devices hold the key to understanding the aircraft's performance and the conversations between the pilots in their final moments. Given the high number of British citizens on board, the United Kingdom's Air Accidents Investigation Branch also announced its participation, bringing international expertise to the inquiry. Several theories emerged from aviation experts trying to make sense of the tragedy. John McDermott, a respected safety engineering expert, suggested that the problem must have been both sudden and unmanageable. He pointed out how unusual the incident was, as modern twin-engine jets like the Boeing 787 are specifically designed to be able to climb safely, even if one engine fails. For the aircraft to lose altitude so quickly after takeoff, something truly catastrophic must have occurred. This ruled out a simple, single-engine failure, and pointed towards a more complex and devastating mechanical issue that overwhelmed both the pilots and the aircraft's safety systems. One prominent theory that circulated among aviation circles was the possibility of a multiple bird strike. A former pilot suggested that a large flock of birds could have been ingested into both engines simultaneously, causing a dual-engine failure. However, other experts were skeptical of this explanation. They noted that while bird strikes are common, having them disable two modern, powerful engines at the same time is exceptionally rare. Furthermore, pilots are extensively trained for such scenarios, and would likely have specifically mentioned bird strike in their distress call if that had been the cause. The absence of such a specific report made this theory less probable, though not entirely impossible. As investigators worked, they systematically ruled out other potential causes. The clear weather conditions meant that factors like wind shear or storms were not to blame. The focus therefore shifted squarely to mechanical failure or some other external event. The controlled descent seen by witnesses suggested the pilots may have had some level of control, but were simply unable to generate enough thrust to stay airborne. This could point to a fuel system failure, a problem with the flight control software, or a structural failure that critically compromised the plane's aerodynamics. The truth would lie buried in the wreckage and the data from the black boxes. The crash of Air India Flight 171 was not just an isolated tragedy, it was a watershed moment for the global aviation industry. Coming in a year that had already seen a disturbing rise in fatalities, this disaster served as a brutal wake-up call. The year 2025 had already surpassed the 10-year average for aviation deaths by June, a stark contrast to the record-setting safety of 2023. This crash, with its high death toll and shocking circumstances, forced airlines, manufacturers, and regulators to confront uncomfortable questions about whether modern aircraft were as infallible as they had been led to believe. The incident shattered a growing sense of complacency that had set in after years of improving safety records. The investigation's findings, whatever they may be, are poised to have a lasting impact on aircraft design, maintenance protocols, and pilot training. If a catastrophic mechanical failure is identified in the Boeing 787, a flagship of modern aviation technology, it could lead to a worldwide review of the fleet, grounding orders, and mandatory design modifications. The focus will be on understanding how a dual-system failure could occur on an aircraft designed with so much redundancy. The findings will undoubtedly influence the next generation of aircraft, with engineers working to build in even more safeguards to prevent a similar event from ever happening again. For the flying public, the crash has reignited deep-seated fears about the safety of air travel. The graphic images and heartbreaking stories from Nagar have a powerful psychological impact, making people question their trust in the industry. Airlines and safety agencies will face immense pressure to be transparent about the investigation and to implement swift, decisive actions to restore public confidence. This incident will likely lead to calls for more rigorous inspection schedules, enhanced training for dealing with unprecedented emergencies, and perhaps even new technologies to mitigate risks like bird strikes near airports. The industry's reputation is on the line, and its response will be watched closely. Ultimately, the legacy of Air India Flight 171 will be defined by the lessons learned from its wreckage. Great tragedies in aviation history, from the Tenerife disaster to the downing of MH17, have always led to significant safety improvements that have made flying safer for future generations. The loss of 242 lives is an immense price to pay, but it must serve a purpose. This crash will forever be remembered as a pivotal event that forced a re-evaluation of aviation safety in the 21st century, reminding everyone that the pursuit of perfect safety is a journey that never ends and